The kiss wasn't supposed to mean anything. He only did it to survive. Hiding from the men hunting him through the neon-soaked streets of Itaewon, blood dripping from a wound that should have killed him. She was just a stranger in a nurse's uniform, walking home too late. But the moment his lips touched hers, something shifted. Something irreversible. From that second on, he swore she was his. She tried to run, tried to hate him, tried to forget the taste of danger in his mouth. But what she didn't know was that the man she rejected, the one she swore to erase from her memory, would become the only person standing between her and a world ready to destroy her. And for him, loving her wouldn't just be dangerous. It would cost him everything. Welcome back, lovelies. If you're new here, you've just stepped into the most intense Afro-Korean love story you'll ever witness. Trust me when I say, this isn't your typical romance. This is obsession, danger, and passion colliding in the streets of Seoul. So before we dive in, smash that like button and subscribe because this story is about to get absolutely mind-blowing. You do not want to miss what happens next. Now, let's begin. Minjun pressed his hand against the bullet wound in his side, feeling warmth seep through his fingers. His vision blurred. He could hear them, boots pounding pavement, voices shouting in sharp Busan dialect. They were close. Then he saw her. A woman in pale blue scrubs, walking with her head down, earbuds in, oblivious to the chaos bleeding into the night around her. Dark skin that caught the streetlight like polished mahogany. Hair pulled back in a ponytail that swayed with each step. Beautiful. And perfectly timed. Minjun didn't think. He moved on instinct, stepping from the shadows and catching her wrist. She gasped, eyes going wide with shock. But before she could scream, he pulled her close and kissed her. Her body went rigid against his. She tasted like mint and surprise. He angled them toward the wall, shielding his face, making it look like just another couple stealing a moment in the dark. His blood soaked into her uniform, but she didn't know that yet. Footsteps thundered past. Voices cursed. Where did he go? Check the other side. Then silence. Minjun broke the kiss and stumbled back. The world tilted sideways. Are you insane? She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, fury blazing in her eyes. Her accent was unfamiliar, not Korean. I'll call the police. Go ahead, he managed, though his voice came out weaker than intended. Tell them Park Minjun says hello. Her expression shifted from anger to recognition to fear. Good. She knew who he was. Then his knees buckled. He hit the ground hard, concrete scraping his palms. The pain in his side exploded into white-hot agony. He heard her voice, distant now, saying something he couldn't quite catch. Hands, small, steady, pressed against his wound. I'm a nurse, she muttered, more to herself than to him. He watched through half-closed eyes as she tore a strip from her uniform, fashioning a tourniquet with practiced efficiency. Hospital, she said firmly, tying off the makeshift bandage. Now, before you bleed out in this filthy alley. She stood to leave, and panic, unfamiliar, unwelcome, shot through him. His hand shot out, catching her wrist. Pulling her towards him, and kissed her again. Her lips was soft. Her palm cracked across his face. The slap echoed in the empty alley. Don't touch me. But Minjun smiled anyway, blood on his teeth, madness in his eyes. I can explain this time. I think I'm in love with you. She stared at him like he'd grown a second head. Then she turned and walked away, her footsteps quick and purposeful, swallowed by the Seoul night. Minjun lay there, still smiling. His men found him almost immediately. As they lifted him into the black Mercedes, he gave his assistant one order. Find out everything about her. The next morning, Bongani Mabeso opened his apartment door expecting the mailman. Instead, he found a line of luxury sedans blocking the narrow Yongsan Street, and a young man in an expensive suit standing on his doorstep. Bandages peeked from beneath the man's collar. Mr. Mabeso, Minjun said with a slight bow. I came to thank your daughter for saving my life, and to inform you that I intend to marry her. Bongani's jaw clenched. He recognized this face. He'd seen it in police briefings back when he still wore a badge. Park Minjun, Seoul's most dangerous ghost. The man who ran half the city's underworld while playing CEO during business hours. I'm in love with Thandi, Minjun continued smoothly. That makes you my future father-in-law. Absolutely not. Bongani's voice was steel. You're a criminal. Stay away from my family. Minjun's smile didn't waver. I built an empire, Mr. Bongani. Call it what you will. I know what you are. Bongani stepped forward, decades of cop instinct rising to the surface. My son died because of men like you. Gang violence in Johannesburg. I moved my daughter here for a fresh start, and now you show up at my door. Your son's death was a tragedy, Minjun said, and for a moment, something genuine flickered in his eyes. But I'm not one of those men. And I won't let anything happen to Thandi. I'll report you. You'll change your mind, Minjun replied calmly. Everyone does. He left a business card on the doorframe and walked away, his men falling into formation around him like shadows. Inside the apartment, Thandi had heard everything. Her face flushed with anger. What did he want? Bongani looked at his daughter, his only remaining child, and felt fear coil in his stomach. Nothing good. Thandi rushed out to confront him, spilling almost immediately in anger and frustration. I'm engaged to be married. Stay the hell away from me. When Saifo came out and saw Minjun, his confidence evaporated. Minjun looked him up and down with the disinterest of a man appraising livestock. So you're the artist. Saifo Ndlovu. Saifo extended his hand. Minjun didn't take it. Cute profession, Minjun said. But she deserves someone who can protect her. The air thickened. Saifo's hand dropped. Thandi doesn't need protection. She needs everything I can give her, Minjun finished. You'll figure that out soon enough. He left without another word, but the threat lingered like smoke. 3 days later, Minjun appeared at Seoul National University Hospital during a press conference. Cameras flashed as he handed an oversized check to the hospital director. 10 billion won for emergency care facilities. This initiative, Minjun told the reporters, was inspired by nurse Thandi Mabeso, whose dedication to saving lives, even strangers in dark alleys, reminded me what wealth should be used for. Thandi watched from the crowd, mortified as every camera turned toward her. Her colleagues whispered. Her supervisor beamed. She cornered him in the hallway afterward, fury overriding caution. You're using me. For your image, your reputation. No. Minjun's voice dropped, intimate and dangerous. I'm trying to make you see. You belong in my world, Thandi. Not his. She wanted to argue, to slap him again, to run. But looking into his eyes, she saw something that terrified her more than his reputation or his power. He meant every word. It started with the feeling of being watched. Thandi noticed it first at the supermarket in Yongsan, a man in a black suit lingering by the produce section while she shopped. Then at the subway station, another suited figure maintained perfect distance as she boarded the train. Outside her favorite coffee shop in Itaewon, a sleek black car idling across the street. She wasn't paranoid. She was being followed. When she finally confronted Minjun outside the hospital after her shift, rage had replaced her fear. Call off your dogs, she hissed, grabbing his arm. I see them everywhere. This is harassment. Minjun dismissed his security with a subtle gesture. They melted into the evening crowd, but Thandi knew they hadn't gone far. I needed to make sure you were safe, he said simply. Safe? She laughed bitterly. You are having me followed everywhere. It is creepy. I know your favorite food is bobo Thai, though you can't find decent ingredients in Seoul, he said, stepping closer. I know your mother's name is Nality, and she calls you every Sunday at 9. I know your visa expires in 6 months, and you've been too distracted to renew it. The color drained from Thandi's face. You should know these things. Minjun leaned in, his voice dropping to something intimate and dangerous. I like to protect what's mine. Thandi, every detail matters when it comes to you. She shoved him back and stormed away, but her hands trembled as she fumbled for her phone. He knew everything. Her life had become transparent, exposed, vulnerable, and somehow that terrified her more than his reputation ever could. The Park family estate in Hanamdong was a fortress of old money and older grudges. When Ji-won summoned Minjun to the sitting room, he knew exactly what was coming. His stepmother sat with the rigid posture of someone who'd spent decades perfecting disapproval. Beside her, Soo-min examined her manicured nails with feigned disinterest. We need to discuss this situation, Ji-won began, her tone sharp as broken glass. This foreign nurse you've been embarrassing yourself over. Minjun poured himself whiskey, not bothering to offer them any. Her name is Thandi. She's nobody, Soo-min interjected. From a low family. No connections, no status. You can't seriously be considering marriage. I'm not considering it, Minjun said coldly. I've decided it. Ji-won's teacup rattled against its saucer. The Parks have a reputation to maintain. Your father built this family's name. My father's dead. Minjun's voice cut through the room like a blade. And I built this empire myself. Everyone, every connection, every ounce of power, mine. Not yours. She's not even Korean. Soo-min protested. Then she'll rise to my level, Minjun replied, finishing his drink. I suggest you both learn to accept that, or find somewhere else to live. The threat hung in the air, unmistakable. Ji-won's face flushed with fury, but she said nothing more. Min-jun had already left the room. Behind him, he heard Soo-min's venomous whisper, "This isn't over." Rain hammered against the pavement as Thandi hurried toward her apartment. She'd made her decision. She would marry Saipho quickly, quietly, before Min-jun could interfere further. It was the only way to end this madness. But when she rounded the corner, she found him waiting. Min-jun stood in the downpour, soaked through, his expensive suit clinging to his frame. He looked like a man who'd been standing there for hours. Maybe he had been. "I gave you time," he said quietly, rain streaming down his face. "Now I'm done waiting." "There's nothing between us," Thandi insisted, though her voice wavered. "I'm marrying Saipho next week." Min-jun raised his hand. Instantly, 3 black vans pulled up, and his men began unloading boxes. Designer bags, jewelry cases, silk-wrapped packages. An obscene display of wealth spread across the rain-slicked street. "I had these prepared for you," Min-jun said. "Everything you could want. Everything you deserve." Thandi stared at the spectacle, feeling nothing but a cold dread settling in her stomach. Cartier, Chanel, Hermes, brands she'd only seen in magazines. Each gift probably cost more than her yearly salary. "Not everything can be bought with money," she shouted, her voice breaking. "I'm not some prize you can purchase." She turned and ran, leaving him standing among the extravagant ruins of his gesture. Behind her, she heard nothing, no footsteps following, no voice calling out. But when she glanced back, she saw Min-jun's expression, and it wasn't triumph or anger. It was devastation. The small church in Yongsan was decorated with white lilies and soft candlelight. Thandi stood at the altar in her mother's wedding dress, Saipho beside her in a borrowed suit. It was simple, rushed, nothing like the wedding she'd imagined as a girl. But it would be over. She would be safe. "If anyone objects to this union," the pastor intoned, "speak now, or—" The doors exploded open. Min-jun walked down the aisle flanked by men in black suits, his footsteps echoing in the horrified silence. Gasps rippled through the small crowd. Someone's grandmother fainted. "I object," Min-jun said calmly, as though he were ordering coffee. "You can't do this." Saipho's mother shrieked, but her eyes were calculating, already measuring the value of the disruption. Min-jun pulled out a check and held it up for everyone to see. 5 billion won. For the Ndlovu family. Consider compensation for disappointment. Saipho's mother's hand shot out so fast she nearly knocked over a candle. She snatched the check, her face flushed with greed. "Mama." Saipho grabbed for it, but she jerked away. "Don't be stupid, boy," she hissed. "Do you know what we can do with this money?" The humiliation crashed over Saipho like a wave. His own mother. His wedding day. Bongani stormed forward and grabbed Thandi's arm. "We're leaving. Now." As her father dragged her toward the side exit, Thandi looked back. Min-jun hadn't moved. He stood at the altar, watching her go, and the expression on his face was triumphant. He looked impressed. 3 days later, police arrived at the Mabeso apartment at dawn. "Bongani Mabeso, you're under arrest for embezzlement of pension funds during your tenure with the Johannesburg Metropolitan Police." "That's impossible," Thandi shouted as they handcuffed her father. "He's been retired for 5 years, but they had documents, account numbers, evidence that looked damning enough to hold him." The bail was set at 80 million won, an impossible sum. Thandi knew immediately who was behind it. She stormed into Min-jun's penthouse that evening without announcement, shoving past his startled security. She found him on the terrace, overlooking the glittering Seoul skyline. "Release my father," she demanded, her voice shaking with fury and desperation. Min-jun turned slowly. "Marry me and he walks free. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering you a solution." His expression remained neutral, businessman-like. "Your choice." Thandi left without another word, her mind racing. She called Saipho, explained everything. He promised to help, swore he'd find the money somehow. But when his mother discovered his plan, her face twisted with malicious glee. "Are you insane?" She grabbed Saipho's arm. "You don't cross Park Min-jun. Not for her. Not for anyone. She needs help." His mother's smile turned sinister. "Don't forget, Saipho. Thandi's brother's death is on your hands. That weapon malfunction? We both know it wasn't an accident." The blood drained from Saipho's face. "If she ever learns the truth," his mother continued softly, "do you think she'll spare you? Do you think her father will?" Fear overwhelmed him. Fear of exposure. Fear of Min-jun. Fear of losing everything. He called Thandi that night and told her he couldn't help. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I can't. Left with no options, no escape, Thandi returned to Minjun's penthouse. She found him in the same place, as if he'd been waiting. I'll marry you, she said, the words tasting like ash. But I'll never love you. Minjun's expression didn't change. We'll see. The wedding was arranged for the following week. A quiet, elegant affair at the Park Estate. But in the shadows of Hanamdong, Ji-won and Sumin gathered in secret. She's taken everything from us, Sumin hissed. Our home, our inheritance, our respect. Ji-won's smile was cruel and calculated. Then we take her life. The plan was simple. Thandi's wedding car would travel Olympic Darrow toward the hotel. A truck, paid handsomely to lose control at precisely the right moment. An accident. Tragic, but accidents happen. On the day of the wedding, Thandi sat in the back of the black Mercedes, staring at nothing. She wore a white dress that felt like a funeral shroud. The driver navigated through Seoul traffic, heading toward what should have been a celebration. She didn't see the truck until it was too late. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. The world turned sideways, then burst into flames. Saifo had been racing toward the hotel, desperate to stop the wedding, to beg Thandi to run away with him. When he saw the crash, saw the car engulfed in fire, his heart stopped. He pulled Thandi's unconscious body from the wreckage seconds before the fuel tank exploded. Blood soaked her white dress. He carried her to his car and disappeared into Seoul's labyrinth of streets. When Minjun arrived at the crash site, his men had already cordoned off the area. The Mercedes was a twisted, burning skeleton. No survivors, they said. No body recovered yet, but no one could have survived that inferno. Across the street, partially hidden behind a parked van, Ji-won and Sumin watched with barely concealed satisfaction. Minjun stood on the road and felt something inside him break. He'd won every fight, conquered every obstacle, built an empire from blood and will. And he'd lost her. Find who did this, he said, his voice empty, and bring them to me alive. He ordered a media blackout. No news coverage, no public acknowledgement. The world didn't need to know that Park Minjun's bride had burned to death on her wedding day. At the Mabeso apartment, Bongani collapsed when the police delivered the news. His wife's screams echoed through the building. Their son, and now their daughter, both gone to violence, to the cruel machinery of the world they tried so hard to escape. Minjun returned to his penthouse and destroyed everything within reach. Furniture shattered. Glass exploded. His knuckles bled, but he felt nothing. He'd thought he could protect her. He'd thought his power meant something. He'd been wrong. In the shadows of Seoul, convinced his rivals had struck at him through Thandi, Minjun declared war. The city's underworld exploded into violence as he hunted for answers, for revenge, for anything to fill the void where her laugh used to live. But Thandi wasn't dead. She was hiding, recovering, and beginning to suspect that her accident had been no accident at all. Weeks had passed since the accident, weeks that felt like years to Minjun. The war he'd waged against his rivals had left Seoul's underworld in ruins, but none of it mattered. Nothing could fill the void Thandi had left behind. That afternoon, Minjun drove through Myeongdong himself, dismissing his driver. He needed the distraction, the noise of the city to drown out the silence in his chest. But then he saw her, a woman in a pale blue dress, her hair catching the sunlight, walking beside Saifo. Minjun slammed on the brakes. The car behind him humped furiously, but he didn't hear it. His hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. It couldn't be. She was dead. He'd seen the burning wreckage, felt his world collapse in that moment. But there she was, alive, laughing at something Saifo said. He threw the door open and ran. People scattered as he crossed the street, his expensive shoes pounding against the pavement. When he reached them, Saifo's eyes widened in recognition and fear. Thandi, Minjun breathed, his voice breaking. She turned, and the color drained from her face. Minjun. He didn't let her finish. His hands grabbed Saifo by the collar, slamming him against a nearby wall. You kidnapped her. You staged her death. His fist connected with Saifo's jaw once, twice. I'll kill you. Stop. Thandi threw herself between them, her hands pressed against Minjun's chest. He didn't kidnap me. He saved me. Minjun froze, his fist suspended in midair. Blood dripped from Saifo's nose, but Minjun's eyes were locked on Thandi. What? The accident was planned, she said, her voice trembling. Someone tried to kill me. Saifo pulled me from the fire. I stayed hidden because I was afraid they'd try again. The words hit Minjun like a bullet. He released Saifo, who crumpled to the ground, and stared at Thandi as if seeing her for the first time. Joy and rage and relief roared in his chest, but beneath it all was something else, shame. 3 days later, Minjun stood outside Saifo's apartment with an envelope containing a check for 200 million won. Cameras from major news outlets surrounded him as he bowed deeply, his head nearly touching the ground. "I apologize for my actions," he said, his voice carrying across the crowd. "You saved the woman I love, and I repaid you with violence. Please accept this as compensation." Saifo emerged from the building, his face still bruised and swollen. He walked up to Minjun, took the envelope, and spat directly in his face. The cameras clicked frantically. Minjun didn't move, didn't wipe the saliva away. He simply straightened and met Saifo's eyes. "Keep her safe," Saifo said, his voice bitter. "Because if you don't, I will." Minjun watched him walk away, and for the first time in his life, he didn't retaliate. Thandi, standing nearby, saw the restraint in his clenched fists, the softness that hadn't been there before. Something had changed in him. The thought of losing her had broken something, or perhaps built something new. But peace never lasted long in Minjun's world. Ji-won and Soo-min watched the news coverage with mounting fury. Thandi was alive, and worse, Minjun was more devoted to her than ever. "We need to get rid of her," Soo-min hissed. "No," Ji-won said slowly, a cruel smile spreading across her face. "This time, we destroy her from the inside." They forged documents, receipts from hotels, photoshopped images of Thandi and Saifo in compromising positions. Then they left them where Minjun would find them. When he did, rage consumed him. He stormed through his penthouse toward Thandi, the evidence clutched in his fist. But as he rounded the corner, he heard voices in the study, Ji-won and Soo-min. "The accident didn't work," Ji-won was saying, "but framing her will. He'll throw her out himself." Minjun stood frozen, the papers falling from his hands. They had tried to kill her. His own family. Within the hour, Ji-won and Soo-min were exiled from the Park Empire, their assets frozen, their names erased from the family registry. Minjun watched them leave without a word. But when he returned to the penthouse, he found Thandi standing on the balcony, her arms wrapped around herself. She looked lost, adrift in a world that wasn't hers. He approached slowly and draped his jacket over her bare shoulders. "I won't force you," he said quietly. "I'll wait until the day you truly want this." She didn't respond, but he saw her fingers tighten on the fabric. That night, as Thandi bathed, she heard the door creak open. Her heart hammered against her ribs, and she instinctively covered herself. But Minjun simply placed a towel on the counter and left without a word, the door clicking softly shut behind him. Thandi stood there in the steam, her mind reeling. Perhaps Minjun wasn't the monster she believed him to be. The next morning, Minjun arrived at Bangani's house unannounced. The older man opened the door with suspicion etched into every line of his face. "I came to apologize," Minjun said. "For everything. For how this started. For the pain I've caused your family." Bangani studied him for a long moment. "Words are cheap." "I know." Minjun met his eyes. "If after 1 year Thandi still doesn't love me, I'll let her go. I'll never force her again. You have my word." Something shifted in Bangani's expression. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was the beginning of understanding. But Saifo couldn't let go. He appeared at the penthouse 2 weeks later, wild-eyed and desperate. "Thandi, please. Come with me. I'll take you somewhere he can't find you." "Saifo, no." Thandi's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm with Minjun now." "You don't mean that. He's manipulating you." "I mean it." Saifo grabbed her wrist. "I won't accept this. I can't lose you." That was when Minjun walked in. Fury exploded across his face as he saw Saifo touching Thandi. "Get your hands off her." "Minjun, wait." Thandi tried to step between them, but he was already advancing. "I should have known," Minjun said, his voice venomous. "You've been seeing him behind my back." "That's not true." But he didn't hear her. He turned and walked away, leaving Thandi standing there with tears streaming down her face. That night, Minjun sat alone in the living room, a bottle of whiskey at his side. The alcohol did nothing to quiet the thoughts tearing through his mind. Had he been wrong about her? Had everything been a lie? His assistant entered hesitantly. "Sir, I need to tell you something. I overheard the conversation earlier. Miss Mabeso rejected him. She told him she chose you." Minjun's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. The truth hit him harder than any bullet ever had. He'd been wrong. Again, he had to make this right. The cemetery was quiet that morning, mist clinging to the gravestones like ghosts refusing to leave. Saifo knelt before a simple marker, flowers clutched in his trembling hands. He came here every year, driven by guilt that never faded, never lessened with time. I'm sorry, he whispered to the name carved in stone. I'm so sorry. Why are you here? Saifo's blood ran cold. He turned to find Bongani standing behind him, his face carved from granite, eyes burning with suspicion. Mr. Mabeso, Saifo stammered, rising quickly. I was just. Why are you at my son's grave? Bongani stepped closer, his voice deadly quiet. You weren't close to him. You barely knew him. Saifo's hand shook. The flowers fell to the ground. I come to pay my respects. Every year. Bongani's eyes narrowed. I've seen you here before. Always alone. Always looking like a man at confession. He grabbed Saifo's collar. What did you do? The words tumbled out before Saifo could stop them. It was an accident. I swear I never meant. What was an accident? His weapon. Saifo's voice broke. I tampered with it. There was a mission, and I was jealous, angry that Thandi admired him so much. I just wanted to embarrass him, make him fail. Tears streamed down his face, but it jammed. During the firefight, it jammed, and he couldn't defend himself. They killed him because of me. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Bongani moved. His fist connected with Saifo's jaw, sending him sprawling. You murdered my son. Another blow. You took him from us. Saifo tasted blood. I was a coward. I was afraid of losing Thandi if she knew. You'll face justice for this. Bongani reached for his phone. I'll make sure you rot in prison for the rest of your life. Panic seized Saifo. He couldn't lose everything now, not when he was so close to having Thandi back. His hand found a rock, heavy and cold. Before he could think, before he could stop himself, he swung. Bongani crumpled to the ground, blood pooling beneath his head. Saifo stood there, shaking, staring at what he'd done. Then survival instinct kicked in. He pulled out his phone, made a call, and within an hour, the scene was arranged. Min Jun's cufflinks, planted near the body. Security footage, carefully edited. A trail of evidence pointing to Seoul's most notorious criminal. 2 days later, Thandi received a package. Inside was her father's phone with a final message recorded just before his death. If something happens to me, look to Min Jun Park. He threatened me. He said he'd make sure I couldn't stand between them. Thandi's world shattered. She called Saifo, the only person she felt she could trust. He killed my father, she sobbed into the phone. Min Jun killed him. I'm so sorry, Thandi. Saifo's voice was perfectly sympathetic. But you need to be careful. He's dangerous. You need to confront him, get him to confess. I'll help you. 3 days later, Min Jun received a message from Thandi asking him to meet her at an abandoned building on the outskirts of Seoul. He went without question, without backup, hope blooming in his chest that she finally wanted to talk. When he entered the dark warehouse, he found her standing in the center, a gun pointed directly at his chest. Her hands trembled, tears streaming down her face. Thandi, did you kill my father? Her voice cracked. Tell me the truth. Min Jun's face paled. Your father is dead? Don't lie to me. She cocked the gun. I have proof. His last message. Evidence. Everything points to you. I didn't do it. Min Jun's voice was calm, steady, even as he stared down the barrel. I swear to you, I didn't kill your father. You're lying. If you don't believe me, he said quietly, taking a step forward, then pulled the trigger. I'd rather die by your hand than live knowing you think I'm capable of this. He didn't move, didn't flinch. His eyes held hers, and in them she saw truth, or thought she did. Do it. Saifo's voice rang out from the shadows. He emerged, his own gun drawn. He killed your father. He's killed so many. Pull the trigger, Thandi. But Thandi couldn't move. Her finger froze on the trigger. You're weak. Saifo's face twisted with rage. Both of you. I saved you, Thandi. I've always saved you. And this is how you repay me. He aimed his gun at Min Jun. If you won't do it, I will. The first shot rang out. Min Jun threw himself in front of Thandi as the bullet tore through his shoulder. They fell together, her gun clattering away. Another shot, this one grazing Thandi's side. I killed them both. Saifo laughed, the sound unhinged. Your brother was a mistake, but your father found out. I had no choice. I did it because I love you. I couldn't lose you. Thandi stared at him, horror washing over her. You killed my brother? It was an accident. But your father, that was necessity. Saifo advanced on them. And now Min Jun takes the blame for everything. Perfect, isn't it? Despite her wound, Thandi lunged at him. But Saifo was stronger, catching her wrist and twisting until she cried out. Stop. Min Jun struggled to his feet, blood pouring from his shoulder. Take me. Kill me. Just let her go. Saifo turned, distracted by Minjun's plea. You think I... Minjun moved. Despite his injury, despite the blood loss, he tackled Saifo. They crashed to the ground, fighting for the gun. Minjun's fist connected with Saifo's face once, twice. The gun skittered across the floor. It's over, Minjun gasped, pinning Saifo down. You're finished. Sirens wailed in the distance. Minjun's assistant had called the police the moment he realized where Minjun had gone. Saifo thrashed beneath him. I won't go to prison. I won't. The police burst through the doors. Freeze. In the chaos, Saifo broke free. He lunged for the gun, grabbed it, turned toward the officers. The shots were instantaneous. Saifo's body jerked backward, the gun falling from his lifeless fingers. Thandi crawled to Minjun's side as paramedics rushed in. He collapsed into her arms, his blood soaking into her clothes. I'm sorry, he whispered. About your father. About everything. I know, she said, her tears falling on his face. I know. Justice had been served, but the price they'd paid was written in scars neither would ever forget. 2 years later, Seoul had changed. So had they. Thandi stood in the gleaming halls of her charity hospital, watching doctors tend to victims of gang violence. Minjun's reformed organization funded every bed, every surgery, every second chance. He'd walked away from the underworld completely, though the scars remained, visible and invisible. Their love had transformed, no longer the desperate obsession that had nearly destroyed them, but something deeper. Devotion forged through pain, tempered by loss. At home, their 3-year-old son was already showing his father's cunning. When Thandi caught him bribing a classmate with candy for his favorite toy, she laughed softly. He's his father's son. Minjun knelt beside the boy, his expression serious but tender. Then we'll teach him to be better than both of us. That evening, they stood on their penthouse balcony, Seoul's skyline glittering below like scattered diamonds. Minjun turned to her, his voice quiet. Do you regret it? Thandi smiled faintly, her eyes on the city that had witnessed their destruction and rebirth. Every day, she whispered. But I'd still choose you. They kissed, not as captor and captive, but as two survivors who had turned their pain into love, their darkness into light. There you have it, my lovelies. Thank you for watching this journey of love, pain, and redemption. Thandi and Minjun's story reminds us that even in darkness, there's a chance for light, that love born from obsession can transform into something real when both people are willing to change. If you enjoyed this Afro-Korean Mafia tale, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Which scene hit you the hardest? Do you think Thandi made the right choice? Stay tuned for more intense stories where African and Korean cultures collide in the dangerous world of crime, romance, and second chances. Until next time, remember, love can save you, but it can also destroy you. Choose.